Hello, everyone. Welcome today. Today I'll be interviewing Phil Lamey, who is a resident on the railroad. We'll be speaking today on the issue of the quarry mine. Hi, Phil. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, how does this affect, I guess, your daily life as being a resident on the railroad? I guess is the first question.
Sure. I mean, for years and years, this area around here was agricultural, and I guess probably about 3 years ago, it all started with the request to actually change this area from residential to gravel pit. Now, typically gravel pits, are away from residents, and it's part of the reason why they couldn't come out on the Carlisle Road with their big trucks, because that's considered municipal land. So instead, they found a way to kind of come out this area here, and if your camera person just wants to kind of pan over there, you can actually see, this is Route 620 highway, so it's considered highway and not municipal land. So they used that technicality to be able to come out this way. And as you saw there from the footage, there's all kinds of houses along this area. So really, we consider it residential, but because technically it was changed to a highway, I'm going to say 15, 20 years ago, they used that technicality to build this bridge and to build this haul-out road. And now we probably have along the lines of 300 trucks per day in the summertime going up and down the road. It's had a huge impact on the way people live. You can't go on your back porch and have barbecues or, have any kind of peace at all at the end of your workday.
Yeah. So, I wonder how they get away with, like you said, just a small technicality, but how did this all start? Did it just kind of out of nowhere, like you said, it got changed to gravel pit? And also, some people were probably, that lived here, were okay with it, because when you think of a gravel pit, they don't think of what's happened here. I mean,
right.
Destroying,
it's been excessive. Right,
excessive.
For sure. But, I mean, for years and years, this was actually in the family, the Curry family, all this land, and they used it for agriculture back there. When Don Curry passed, the land actually passed over to a nephew of his. And the nephew really didn't have the history nor the desire to kind of do anything with the land. So that's how the people, Myra, who's a company from Nova Scotia, who really doesn't have any ties to this local environment at all, actually managed to purchase that land from them at, I'm sure, a basement bargain price.
Yeah.
And, they immediately knew exactly what they wanted to do with this land. And like I said, they don't have any history, they don't have any past with this area. They don't realize that there are actually endangered species in this area. That a lot of the residents down here, we know what's down here. We've been here forever. We know salmon parr run through the river. We know there's wood turtles that are an endangered species. We know that there are beechnut trees, which are protected species. But they really didn't know, and the government didn't actually force them to do an environmental impact assessment before they did all this. They said it wasn't necessary. So as a result, they were able to do all this, to destroy all this land without ever having the environmental impact assessment completed.
So it's amazing. It's almost like not your rights, but you're paying for your property, you're paying your bills, and like you said, you can't go on your back porch to have something as simple as a barbecue because of, I suppose some days you may go out and you can't hardly see. It's like a fog almost.
Yeah, if the wind's blowing the wrong way.
And the road, trust me, I've driven this road quite a bit, is a horrible road as is.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous, very fast paced, but you said 300 trucks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably impossible now to even go for a walk, or it was almost impossible before. But
there's no side of the road, so there is no, the side of the road might be like that, and it's not like paved, it's just dirt. And if there's two trucks going, there's nowhere for those guys to go. The people on the side of the road pretty much have to crawl down into a ditch just to, to let those two trucks pass. And they're not passing slowly. They're on a timer. They get paid for the amount of loads they get done in one day. So they're usually traveling down this road in excessive speed. They don't tarp up their backs. They're supposed to tarp up their back, and they don't do that. So pieces of rock have been found along the side of the road, and I've had near misses with people walking on the side of the road. So you're absolutely right. We don't walk on the side of the road anymore. And another side effect, like you were saying about the properties and everything else like that, is people have lived here forever, and they've sunk their money. They're paying their mortgages and paying their property tax bills for years and years and years, and now our property values have almost been sliced in half. So a lot of people who have been counting on the value of their homes as part of their retirement have had to completely rethink their retirement years.
So do you think, from a business standpoint, it's good for the province. It's getting gravel. It's
Yep.
for use for road. We don't have to. We're using what we make here, which is something New Brunswick is usually not known for. They're usually bringing in things from other places. It's nice to get local and
Yeah.
use local.
Yeah.
So the question is there any way that in this location here that this could run in a way that it would be all right, or do you think that this just is too close to?
It's too close, unfortunately.
Residential
It's too close to residential area. That, I kind of look at Myra and the way they set up operations, and it's within all the guidelines that the government has actually set out, right? So the question really isn't, do we have a bad company here? The question is, are the policies that are in place from the government enough to ensure that residential people are not affected by companies like this? And I think it's pretty clear, from the fact that people around the area have had their foundations cracked, property values lowered, we can't go for walks, we can't enjoy our backyards. Barbara McKinnon and the Lung Association have been out here testing the air because they're very concerned over cancerous particles that they found actually in the air.
Wow.
So all these things combined, I have to believe that there's a failure really from the government standpoint to ensure that the quality of life for residential people have not been impacted by a company moving in. And I think the bottom line is that these things would have been discovered if they had done an environmental impact assessment before they actually approved this. But they didn't, because they didn't look at this area as a floodplain. They said if it was a floodplain, they would look at it, or if they had known about the wood turtles back then, they would have ensured it was done. But they really didn't do their due diligence. Nothing was really done ahead of time, and as a result, we're now living with it. And I would say to put it bluntly, it's very unfair to the residents who actually live in this area.
And like you said, even if they pack up and leave tomorrow, it's going to have an impact on the land. But not just that, the damage it has done on the houses and stuff already. But
Yeah.
so from what I've heard, there's been respectful conversations to try to get a hold of the government, from the Lung Association, from things like that.
Yeah.
So what's been the response under PC that we're just barely finishing as this was going through, and the Liberals? Has there been any kind of compensation or anything talked about from the government?
Well, no compensation, but Spring Hill tried to open a quarry or another quarry less than a mile up this road, and there was a huge backlash, not just from the residents of Royal Road, but also from Kingsley Road and Douglas, because they knew that there's the potential that they could bring their trucks out Douglas way, right? Because they own land way up to the Carlisle Road. So there was actually a huge outpouring of support. There were protests completed at the legislature, protests at the Minister's Office of Environment, and I would say that those things were successful because the Spring Hill quarry that was supposed to be set up was actually denied their permit. They were actually denied the permit change from agricultural to industrial quarry, which prevented them from doing exactly this right up the road. So the great hope, these people here have to re-sign their contract with the government in 2020.
Wow.
So, even though Spring Hill has been disallowed, the group here along the road, people against the quarry, has kept on moving forward in the hopes that by 2020 the government will say, no, we're not going to re-sign the agreement, and they will close down this quarry as well.
And I think that's neat because, as we know, there's a provincial election happening, and like I said before, the two biggest parties, which is the Liberals and the PC, both the PC actually started the process to begin this, and then the Liberals have kind of gone through with it. So if that's a big issue, I think you could definitely see this riding here, which is, I don't know, last time there was a flip with the riding. Some of the ridings were comboed, and some I know that I think this was a Chris McDonald riding, and is it now? So, I mean, I think in this area especially, you're going to see some big number changes in the election, especially on this issue. And I think that, like I said, it would just be nice if, you know, I understand that the government's busy, just to come out for a day, like you said, in the busiest, toughest, worst day, and literally see, you know, whatever you have on your mantle falling off, or not being able to go out for barbecue. I mean, those are just normal things.
They have come out, you know, to do kind of assessments, not the Minister of Environment or anybody like that, but they have had people come out and kind of do scheduled visits. But that's exactly what they are. They tell the business, they tell the company when they're coming out, so they're on their best behavior. But
they got the tarp straps on tight.
They got the tarp straps on tight. They're lining. You know, normally they would come through with their jack brakes at about 6 o'clock in the morning, waking everybody up as they line up here at the quarry, but the quarry doesn't open until 7. So the company will tell them, don't bother coming until, you know, 8 o'clock that day, because we're not going to serve you. So, you know, they're on their best behavior. They're not really getting a true sense of what it's like. If they really wanted a true sense of what it's like, all they need to do is ask anybody who lives in this area.
And the last thing I just wanted to touch on is, you know, we talk about businesses and stuff, and it's all about local jobs. Like you said, this is a Nova Scotia company. This is, even at the only positive would be, is it hiring local people, which it's not. Well,
I mean, the truckers are local, right? Like the people who are driving the truck are, you know, it's creating jobs and providing them, you know, they don't have to go so far for the rock, you know, as they might. But I mean, you know, you have to look at that and you have to say, balance that out with the quality of living of the people who are living in the area. I think if they had built this maybe 10 more kilometers out of town, you know, they wouldn't be bothering people.
Well, if they had the Springfield one, is how far down about?
It's only about a kilometer. It wouldn't, a half a mile. It wouldn't have made much difference. It would have been just as bad.
So if you look at me here, you can see it goes back here. How far does it go back to where they're blowing right now, where they're mainly...
Well, that's pretty much the area, as you see the crest of the hill there. And what's really, really interesting is right beside that to the right is actually the Gilmers Golf Club.
Oh, wow.
So it's like right next to the golf club.
So the question is, as you said, if they made it about 10 kilometers back, is there, like, how far do you hit roads or houses the other way there?
Well, I mean, the Claudy Road is not far from there, right? If we were to take an ATV or something, we'd be at the Claudy Road within 3 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And Douglas, you know, like Carlisle Road is like right out there. And so, you know, everything's really close. Like my thought about all this is that I think, you know, this was a big failure, in my opinion, you know, to the citizens anyways. And they really need to look at the policy to say, how close to any residential area should we allow these types of operations?
There should be,
And there should be some sort of guideline that says you can't, you know, that prevents them from being able to impact people's property values and things like that. And if not, then there should be some sort of forced compensation by the company, you know, to the people who live in the area.
All right, well, thanks very much, Phil. I appreciate talking to you. And make sure to look up this issue, folks. This is a big issue here in our local area. And I want to thank Phil, and I want to thank the camera lady, Beverly. Thanks very much, and we'll see you.